Good morning, team. Thank you for jumping on another episode of my Take Flight Weekly, episode number 294, The Road Trip to a 3-Year Vision. And on this 294th episode of Take Flight Weekly, I want to share a perspective that came to me while driving on the longest road trip of my life. And it was Lizzy Miller's college drop off from Chicago to Boston and back, almost 30 hours in the car. The journey, which I did solo, was about getting Lizzy settled into Boston College. But along the way, I realized that a long road trip has striking similarities to pursuing and reaching your 3-year vision. And just like plotting a course from Chicago to Boston and back, that 3-year vision requires preparation, checkpoints, mile markers, and all of this requires clarity, systems, and disciplined execution. Before we dive in, I want to remind you of my purpose, and that is to help you, the full service, full fee advisor and entrepreneur, become more productive and more fulfilled. Why? Because I believe fully that happy advisors and entrepreneurs, they just produce more. And I want you to listen today as if we are sitting here together one on one. Look at this as your coaching session. Here's what I learned on the road. When you set out on a long road trip, you begin with the end in mind, right? Getting a carload of dorm room items safely to Boston was the clear mission, and also, getting back. It would allow me to meet the rest of my family in Boston, help Lizzy settle in, and return home. Along the way, the trip broke down into stages and stops. Chicago to New Buffalo, where we loaded up my SUV. Then I drove from New Buffalo to Buffalo, New York, where I filled up with gas. Buffalo to Albany, and Albany to Boston. The way back followed a similar pattern. Each stage had its purpose: packing, refueling, and resting. And then, of course, adjusting course along the way. The same holds true in business. Your 3-year vision is your Boston, it's the destination. But to get there, you don't just jump in the car and hope for the best. You prepare and you map out the road trip. You build in your 12 quarterly checkpoints, which are your stops along the way to your 3-year vision. You set yourself up with the right tools. You need your Google Maps, your Apple CarPlay. I had a cooler in the car. I had all my playlists, all the podcasts loaded up. And, I charted my fuel stops. For you, the advisors and entrepreneurs, it means you need your technology, you need your CRM, you need your planning process, your daily rituals, your coaching, and your accountability. Without those, the 3-year vision, quote unquote, road trip becomes guesswork, and you run the risk of stalling and ending up at the wrong destination. The lesson and the reminder, the validation of my 29 plus hours in my SUV was progress isn't about one big leap. It's about consistent, intentional stages. Just as I knew that reaching Cleveland, Buffalo, or Albany meant I was on the right track, your weekly reviews, your quarterly audits, and your annual business planning sessions act as your mile markers. They tell you if you're heading on the right path, if you're ahead of schedule, off course, or right where you need to be. The road will test you with detours and fatigue, but if your destination is locked in and your systems are strong, you'll arrive. And that's the difference between wandering and winning. And as I was on this drive, on the way back, I was, I think where this analogy or this metaphor hit me was On the way back, I was gonna try to get to Cleveland, or initially Buffalo, which was 7 hours, and then I'm like Amy and I were at breakfast, and I was like, I think I can get to Cleveland on Saturday," which was 10 hours. And getting back after having dropped Lizzie off and getting back to New Buffalo was just I needed to get this trip behind me. So, it hit me about 2 hours outside of Buffalo, almost on the way to Cleveland where I was going to stop. I called Amy up and I said, "I'm bringing it in." It was another 3.5 hours. I was sitting there at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, with about an hour and a half left to go to Cleveland. I said, I'm going to skip the stop. I'm going to skip the stay. I'm going to bring it into Chicago. And that's what happens when you see your 3-year vision literally in your, you know, in your vision, right? It's sitting there looking at you. And you're like, man, with just a little bit of effort, I can get there. I can get there quicker. And that's the power of having a destination, is that it drives you. If I didn't have that, if I was just out driving with no reason to get home, I would just for sure stop. There's no question about it. So look at this as an analogy of what you need to do. If you do not have that 3-year vision, you're going to stop. You're going to start and stop, start and stop, start and stop, and you're never going to get there. Okay. And so I have never been more sold on this concept as I just wrapped up my fourth vision cycle heading towards number five, 3 to 4 years out. Okay. So here are the tactical takeaways. And this is what you need to do to build your roadmap to a 3-year vision. Think of your 3-year vision again, like I did, like a cross country trip. And here's how to make this metaphor analogy kind of tactical. Number one, we talked about it on my last podcast. You got to define the destination. You got to be crystal clear on your 3-year vision, what it looks like. Where are you going? How do you want to live? Who do you want to become? What would you have to do to make major progress in those 3 years or along that road trip? And then you got to prepare. You got to prepare your vehicle, your business, equip yourself with the right tools, your CRM, your financial plan, your daily rituals. And again, get into an accountability group, get into, hire a coach. I mean, do whatever you can to get there. And then set out, plot your route, break up your vision into 12 quarterly checkpoints. Each quarter is a leg of the journey with its own objectives. And in the beginning, you're going to focus on those first 2 or 3 stops. What do I got to do to get to Cleveland, and then on to Buffalo, and then on to Albany, and then on to Boston and back. Fuel up regularly. Just as you need gas, food, and rest, you as the entrepreneur and advisor, you need rest and recovery time along the way. You need to reflect, and you need those moments of inspiration. You got to build it into your schedule. Use your GPS. Use your Google Maps, your Apple CarPlay, which is your weekly reviews, your quarterly audits, and your annual business planning that keep you on track. They are your navigation system. Okay. Plan, sprint, and celebrate. That means you got to plan to get to the next stop, sprint, celebrate, which is taking that moment to review and reflect. Okay. And then adjust where necessary. Road trips almost always have some form of detour. Be willing to pivot, keeping your eyes on the ultimate destination. And then again, celebrate, like I mentioned, celebrate the milestones, acknowledge progress at each checkpoint. The journey itself is what builds confidence and momentum. I love that word momentum, right? And that's exactly what I had as I was an hour and a half outside of Cleveland. I had momentum. I'm like, man, I can make it, right? I can do 5 more hours to get home. So that day was long. It was almost pushing 15 hours in the car. Um, but I did it because I had momentum and I wanted to get to my destination. I didn't want to stop in Cleveland. So When you think about all of this, the pursuit of a 3-year vision isn't much different than other major journeys in life. Planning a wedding, raising children, running a marathon, a financial or health and wellness transformation, or just learning a new skill or language. None of these happen overnight. They unfold step by step, milestone by milestone, with seasons of momentum and seasons of challenge. Just like a long road trip, these journeys require clarity and focus on the destination, preparation on the road ahead, and the discipline to keep going even when fatigue or detours set in. The progress is rarely linear, but over time, the small, consistent actions and mile markers compound into something remarkable. The essence of hitting your 3-year vision is that you just don't wake up one day at your final stop. Rather, you grow into it along the way. And so after I after I did the live session of my Take Flight Weekly, where I talked about the 3-year vision, I got a really powerful text message from one of our advisors here at Jameson Sotheby's International Realty, and um, she is having progress. Right, acknowledge that she's having progress towards her 3-year vision, but it's taking time, and there's still a long way to go. And she gets discouraged from time to time. And so this call and understanding that a 3-year vision or getting there or manifesting that destination or that goal takes time, but you got to break it down into steps. What's my first stop? And then once I hit there, what's my second stop? And track those things along the way. Okay. And winning in life and real estate brokerage and in entrepreneurship, when you break it down, isn't all that difficult. It is focusing on what works for you and going from stage to stage. And in my next Take Flight Weekly, I'm going to talk about that, right? And that is, do not stray with all of the things that are out there, all of the noise. Do not stray away from the basics. And one of those basics is what I talked about today: 3-year vision and charting your course. I've done it 4 times, and I know now the minute I write that destination on a piece of paper when I do my visioneering, I know now that I'm going to get there. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because I now know the course. I've driven to Boston and back. I know how to get there. I know the road, and that is those stops along the way. And not thinking about the big destination at the end, because that can be overwhelming. You got to think about the next stop along the way, and then you're going to wake up one day and you're going to be like, I'm home. I'm home. So with that, guys, team, I appreciate you listening today, and I'll be back here in about another week with another episode of my Take Flight Weekly. Have a great week, team. Thank you.